they, of the squaw or the baby, they said that her story was that they went out and, tried to find them, and then they would find the remains, like bones of their loved ones. So I don't know. Again, is a Bigfoot really a creature, or could it be something? Let's face it. If we've been visited, and I really strongly feel we've been visited by alien races of all kinds since mankind, and I don't know how many times we've been rebooted on this planet, but I'm surely, by doing their mind probes and everything else they do, right? Maybe they could picture in people's mind what type of creature or what type of thing it would scare them. To keep them away from certain areas. Or the same way, as somebody says, well, I see owls all the time after they've been abducted. My feeling is maybe they're not seeing owls, but maybe they're seeing, they're being abducted again a few times, or they're out, and those owls are actually aliens. But they're implanting a thought when he sees an alien. He doesn't see the alien, he sees an owl. That person happened to be a game warden. So, I mean, it just kind of weird things, unless we get bodies to prove it, then it's really hard to really prove that a Bigfoot really exists as a Bigfoot. But again,
sure,
I've had a guest on here lately, Samantha, who claims up here in Clearwater or something, Washington, she sees Bigfoot occasionally. She has sent me photos over, and then pictures of what she claims little people, like 6 inches tall, which I find interesting because, I have talked to Mary Joyce. She's a regular once a month guest on my show. She runs a UFO Bigfoot reporting center out of North Cashiers, North Carolina. And she told me back when they were building a community college, they found skeletons, and they weren't baby skeletons like from humans, but they were like 6 inches, 8 inches, 10 inches long skeletons of humanoid.
Well, that's definitely interesting. Certainly there have been, some pretty widely publicized stories of those kinds of skeletons, I think, popping up. It's really difficult to know what to make of that, because you do make a really good point. It's sort of reminiscent of, like John Keel and Jacques Vallée and sort of the subsect of ufologists, and really sort of just paranormal experts and Freudian whatever, that view the breadth of these phenomena, be it Bigfoot or UFOs or aliens or whatever else, as something that the nature of which is truly indiscernible, because so much of it is so ephemeral, you're right. Like there isn't, like we don't have a body for Bigfoot. Like we get tracks occasionally. But, at the same time, people will have reported shooting at Bigfoot. Well, heck, people will report shooting Bigfoot, and there's no effect. Or they'll see Bigfoot, and he will walk through a solid object and disappear or something. And so, yeah, you have to consider sort of that possibility that some aspects of this are projections, that some part of this at least is us witnessing something that we're supposed to witness and not necessarily what's actually there. Sort of harkening back to what you're talking about with people, reporting owls after in alien abduction. Sometimes childhood abductees would report, things like a clown coming in their room late at night, or something, relatively, although I would find that terrifying, but something like relatively innocent to a child, as a sort of screen for what was really happening to them. So yeah, I mean, if somebody talks about finding actual physical, 6-inch tall skeletons, boy, I would hope that somebody got a chance to examine them. Somebody who knows a lot more about biology than me, to try to figure out sort of really just to figure out where they came from. And if they didn't, then yeah, it's just another bit of data that, when you throw it in the mix with everything else, it's contradictory. And so much of this is contradictory, that, it's difficult at times, to try to fit it all together. I think the natural reaction sometimes is to say, well, maybe it didn't happen that way, or, maybe that just isn't true, or who knows, because, yeah, I mean, otherwise we're sort of left in a place where, we have a bunch of contradictory information, and who knows which parts of it are actually true,
Yeah, and it's like, remember years ago you pick up a magazine, like a Popper Mechanics. I'm talking about 20, 30 years ago, and you see these weight loss, and here's this man or this woman, right? And they're, really skinny, and next to them there's a picture of them when they were fat, and always when they were fat, it's always blurry. And it just, that's something I find a lot with. I get so many people sending me pictures of Bigfoot or alien UFOs and stuff like that, or orbs. I mean, there almost isn't a day I don't get one of that type of stuff. And, I start looking, because I've been in photography, even longer than I was with radio. And I was one of the first people to have Photoshop. So I know what to look for, what to do on Photoshop. I bring in the images, I start looking at them, and I realize, well, that Bigfoot is not a Bigfoot. That is a rotting stump, in the bushes. But it kind of resembles a shape of a humanoid. I've seen that happen. I get video clips of people saying, oh, yeah, I got this picture of a Bigfoot. There's one circulating right now on Facebook, on a lot of the Bigfoot groups. And you can clearly, if you slow it down, you can see that the guy or whoever is in it, one is the walk is wrong. Number two is you can actually see his costume moving away from his leg, where skin wouldn't do that, but you'd have to be really looking at it. Other than that, I mean, it was really, really a good job, but that's a dead giveaway right there. And I see so many people that go out and they want to prove, or they believe in it so strongly, they'll put a lot of stuff out that actually really does damage to the paranormal, damage to the UFOs or Bigfoot. I mean, I get people, they don't understand how cameras work. They take a picture, right, in their backyard off their porch, and they all of a sudden have all these orbs. They don't understand, those orbs are caused by their aperture and then their lens. Or they get a digital, SLR or DLR camera, right? Well, they get dust in the sensor. Now, a lot of times, if you're not taking sky shots, you'll never see those dust spots. But if you get on an aperture like f/16 or higher, 22 or whatever, and you take a sky shot, you're going to see dust spots. And these people will send me pictures, and they say, "Oh, look at this UFO." I magnify it, and all of a sudden, I you know what I see? I see a dust spot. I don't see an UFO, and I hate to burst people's bubbles, but people, if they're going to go around and promote that, hey, this is what I saw, whatever, their credibility's at stake too. I mean, going around and putting stuff out that, how can I say it, is not legit, damages not just that person, because eventually somebody like me is going to find it. Now, do I go on Facebook and say, hey, this is a fake? Or I don't do that because, I leave that up to other people. But I get so much of that. It's shocking.
Yeah, well, honestly, Gary, I understand 100% where you're coming from. I mean, that's certainly how we approach things too. My wife, actually, who's my partner in the Singing the Fortean Society, one of her 4-year degrees is in photography. So I mean, she does the same thing as you, and yeah, I mean, the fact is, the way cameras work, like, any camera any civilian is likely to own and use to take pictures. If you aren't seeing whatever you're taking a picture of with your naked eye, if it's not there for you to see with your naked eye, but it's on the image later, it's one of the things that you just described.
Well,
it's
a simple cure.
And it's difficult to explain that to people because they don't want to hear it.
Well, it's a simple cure. You know what it is? I'm sure your wife, you've probably seen her do it. You go up and you get a white piece of paper, okay? And you either put it up on the wall or you hold it in front of the lens. You get the light right, and you set your lens at like f/16 or f/22, and you take a picture of that white piece of paper. And you'll see any dust spots on your sensor. They'll pop up like mad. 1, 2, or 3, who knows? Or if somebody never ever cleans the sensor, they could have a lot. Okay, now they're looking in their viewfinder, they don't see it. So they take a Skype shot, and all of a sudden, I got a UFO. Well, yeah, they got a big dust bunny that kind of, is out of focus, and I guess, if you don't know anything, it would look like a UFO. But that, people should, really, I don't know. It's frustrating.
It is frustrating. And like I said, when it comes to ghosts, UFOs, anything else, I just don't understand how people think that an image will magically show up on a photograph that you couldn't see directly in front of you with your eyeball when you were taking the picture. That's just not how cameras work. But now, it's not that also I think we have to make an important distinction here. It's not always people trying to, pass things off as hoaxes. And I guess most of what we were talking about was honest mistakes. But there are sometimes things in the environment that can be really, really confusing. A lot of people mistake things like black bears for Bigfoot. I had a guy who sent me a video of what he was sure was a bat-like flying humanoid out of Chicago. Like, he was convinced. He was very sincere. I spoke to him at length, and he was very happy to share this video. He was like, I got it. I will send it to you. Do whatever you can with it. And it was this GoPro video. And so he hadn't actually gotten any still images from it and blown them up or anything. But I took it, I put it in Photoshop. I managed to get some still images of it, blew them up, and it was some kind of big bird. I would guess like a great blue heron, something similar, but it's clearly a bird. Like, this is part of my Lake Michigan Mothman presentation that I'll do at conferences, and the whole audience can see it is absolutely, without a doubt, a huge bird. But when this guy was seeing it, he was sure that what he was seeing was some kind of crazy bat monster. And it really just goes to show that, sometimes if somebody is witnessing something completely outside of their experience, even if that thing is just a mundane bird that they've never seen before and isn't really something